So, for someone new to LLMs, where do they begin?
So it's a real problem because today there are so many models on the market and platforms, books, articles, and everyone is producing AI on all sorts of platforms. So for the person that begins, I would say, three directions. The first direction would be to try to use these large language models. That means going to Google Gemini, where you can ask questions. Go to OpenAI ChatGPT. Go to Bing. Go to Bing, where you have GPT-4, but it's not the same version as OpenAI. So now you have three AIs that you can look at. So that's the first direction, okay? But the problem now is, what are you going to ask? What are you going to ask these AIs to evaluate them and to see if you like them and you're going to do something and how they work? So if you start with easy questions like cooking and recipes and things like that, I don't think you'll go anywhere. Let's be frank about that. You always have these questions, what am I going to cook for dinner next week? You don't need artificial intelligence to do that. You don't need to use all that power just to say, I want to cook a meal on Monday. So what you have to do is find something you know about. Like, suppose you're an expert in a field or you know something about a field. You want to first test the system to see how far it can go and what you like. Suppose you're an engineer. Suppose you're an engineer in electronics. Well, then you want to ask questions about electronics. You're not trying to learn something. You're trying to figure out how it works. And then little by little, you'll understand how one of these chat systems works. Like, you start with Google Gemini. And then when you go to Bing, you'll find that the behavior is totally different. So you look at Bing and you say, wow, it's not saying that it's not working at all like Gemini. Why? Because Bing is very different. It will first do a search, a classical search, and it will look for websites, and then it will sum up these websites, which means it's an augmented search engine. But do the same thing. Take something you know about. If you're a psychologist, anything you know about, and see how it reacts to what you know, and see how far it can take you. And then you go to ChatGPT, which of course is one of the most powerful ones on the market. But then where you start there, because you have a free version, then you have a paid version, which is ChatGPT Plus, which has a lot more functions. So you might be disappointed by the free version. So this might take you a few days. Don't think this is an easy task, because then you have three parts of that. If you don't know much about a subject, you'll go nowhere, because how do you know if it's saying nonsense or not? You don't. So if you don't know anything about a subject, you can't trust it. You don't trust it. You don't trust anybody. Okay. You don't trust anybody or anything. So that's why you have to start with something that's intermediate, something you know about, and see how far it can take you. Then you need to reach the level where you can say, wow, that's the limit. It's not creative enough for me. It doesn't have enough expertise. Let's see, like in a legal field, you might see some nice laws and everything, but then when you ask them about something specific, one of these systems, it doesn't know how to answer. So then you found an upper limit. So there's the lower limit where you have to start above with something you know, and then there's the upper limit where you reach the limit. But until you understand those two limits, well, you're not going to go very far. So first, you need to play around with these three main models: Google, Gemini, Microsoft Bing with GPT-4 activated, and ChatGPT. Of course, there are other ones. If you want to have fun, you can go on Hugging Face, or you can go on places like that where very entertaining. But you won't reach the level you're reaching with the most powerful ones. So you need to go see. Then you can go check other. So now that's just one direction. Remember I said there are three directions? Now you need to take a second direction, is to understand how they work. How does a generative AI algorithm work? And you're going to begin, and now you're going to have a problem. So remember the first direction is to test. Now you're reaching to understand the model, but it's nearly impossible to accept it. So let me tell you why. It's nearly impossible to accept how a generative AI works because it's purely mathematical and statistical. It knows nothing. It doesn't understand what it's doing. It's just statistical. It's saying let's say it's like a logical test. You see A, B, C, what comes after D? But the problem, why do I say it seems very simple to understand what I just said? But why am I saying it's impossible to accept it? Because for as long as language exists, the only people using language have been humans. So we always end up thinking that this AI is a person, no matter what we do. Even me, I know the mathematics of it. I built them. I know everything. But when you talk to it, you think it's somebody. So there's a huge problem here because there's no consciousness. It's just a pack of mathematics with statistics. But then we humans can't accept that. We can't say, you're not going to tell me that this thing has nothing in it and it does things better than me. And it's telling me that it has to think something. It's biased. It's trying to influence me. But it's not it. It's just a thing. So that's a huge stumbling block to go over. And the only way to go over is to go, for example, in chapters 1 and 2 in my book, and so chapter 1, I'll begin to take you there. And chapter 2 is a tough chapter full of simple math, but it's so difficult to accept that there's nothing in it. It's just a bunch of statistics. You're going to say, I'm looking in something that's nearly empty. How can it do so much? So you need to understand that. And suppose you have some problems with some paragraphs in that chapter 2, you can always copy and paste them into one of the 3 AIs I've been talking about and ask for an explanation. So that second direction means you have to understand how it works, and you have to find a method where you can immediately think, no, this is not a person, this is just math. You have to find a way. Otherwise, you'll get trapped and addicted, and you'll think you have a companion, think you're going to have a friend. You might even fall in love with the thing. There's been cases like that where in Japan, someone got married with an AI. So you don't get trapped. There's only math in there. So now direction 1, you were playing around with it. Direction 2, you understood it. Now direction 3, well, you're going to have to make a decision. Now you have to get your hands dirty. You have to go into the GitHub repository of the book, and you have to begin to click on these programs and see how they work to make a choice. Because now that you know how they work a bit, you know what's in it. Now you have to see what's best for your need, and you have to test all kinds of models. Hugging Face is full of excellent models to test. Okay, then you have Google, that you have with Google Palm 2, and you have Google Gemini, then you have ChatGPT, but ChatGPT, there are about 50 versions and variations of their model. So now you need to get your hands dirty. You have to run them. You have to it can summarize well, but doesn't answer questions the way I want. Maybe I'll go back and use this model, or maybe that's an expensive model because now you have cost. Now that you're playing around and you're getting your hands dirty, what's free and what do I have to pay for? Now, if I have to pay for ChatGPT and I have to pay for Vertex AI and I have to pay for some of the use of Hugging Face, by the time I make a decision, I'm going to be spending a lot of money. So you're going to have to take cost into account and maybe go back to what I was saying, taking a subject that you know something about and test it. See if it goes that way. What do you want to do? Summarize, answer questions. So now you have to get your hands dirty and you have to test all these notebooks to see what you want and what you need. Then at this point, you have your 3 directions. You've played around with it. you know how the model works, and you've tested a lot of systems like from Hugging Face, OpenAI, Google. You've tested a lot of things, or maybe free versions of Google T5 or all kinds of models, GPT-4, GPT-3, T5, BERT, Roberta. The book is full of models. And now that you know all this, well, you're ready to go, and you're ready to talk to a customer, or you're ready to talk to yourself to see what you want to do.